This presentation has been prepared in response to the Council's request to explain the high chloride levels in the drinking water that occurred in February 2025 and to provide an overview of the City of Rahway's water system. This presentation was prepared by Dan Lee, City Engineer and Director of Engineering and Land Use, and presented in its original form at the March 10, 2025 Council meeting. In his role as City Engineer, Mr. Lee oversees the contractual obligations of Veolia, who is the city's contracted and licensed water system operator. The goal of this presentation is to provide information that answers the following questions. What is the source of our drinking water? How is the water treated? How does the water get to my property? Why does the water taste salty in the winter? What are chlorides and how are they addressed? Why was the taste of salt so strong in February of 2025? What is the city doing in response to what happened? What investments has the city already made? And finally, where can I find more information? What is the source of our drinking water? Did you know that the Rahway River is the primary source of drinking water for the city of Rahway? In this slide, we'll review some details regarding our source of water. The bold green line depicted on the screen delineates the limits of the watershed for the Rahway River. The watershed reaches as far north as the Oranges in Essex County. The light green shaded area inside of the bold green line is the 41 square mile watershed. Generally, all precipitation that falls within the watershed ends up traveling through the roughly 30 plus miles of waterways indicated by the bold blue lines. These waterways ultimately pass through the city of Rahway. As the precipitation hits the ground within the watershed, it collects through curb gutters or through overland flow and gathers into pipes. This water gathers in tributaries, creeks, and streams, and eventually makes its way to the Rahway River and into our water treatment plant, and then finally to your home. Once the water reaches the treatment plant, it undergoes a complex purification process consisting of 5 major filtration stages, as illustrated in the simplified image. Technical names for the various major components of the filtration system are provided on the top of the screen, and a brief description of their function is provided on the bottom of the screen. After untreated water, known as raw water, is drawn from the Rahway River via the intake and low lift pump station, it is sent to the packed tower aeration facility, where lighter compounds are removed from the water. From there, the water moves on to sedimentation basin number 1, where heavier solids, dirt, and sediment are removed from the water. Water then moves from sedimentation basin number 1 to sedimentation basin number 2, where further removal of heavier materials occurs. The fourth major component of the water system is the membrane filter. These filters were installed around 2017 as part of a $10 million water treatment plant upgrade. These membrane filters filter out smaller contaminants from the water and significantly increased the volume of water that could be produced at our water treatment plant. The water then moves to the final major stage, the GAC, or Granular Activated Carbon Treatment Facility, where the water is primarily treated to improve taste, odor, and color, which are secondary drinking water standards. Secondary drinking water standards are not mandated by the NJDEP and US EPA, but this process is in place to provide a higher quality of water. These filters are essentially industrial-sized versions of Brita filters, or refrigerator water filters that you may have in your home. Although the primary purpose of the GAC is for taste, odor, and color, the most commonly known contaminant that is removed from the water at this stage is PFAS, PFAS, which is regulated as a primary drinking water standard. Additives such as chlorine, fluoride, and beneficial minerals are also introduced into the water during this stage. This is the final stage of the water purification process. The water is now considered finished water. After this point, the water is pumped onto our 3 million gallon storage tank and then ultimately pumped out to the system. In the next slides, we'll review how the water gets delivered to your property. In the previous slides, we covered 1. The source of the drinking water, and 2. How the water is treated at the water treatment plant in the northwest part of the city. Once the water is finished, it is pumped into a 3 million gallon ground tank to be stored for future use, typically that day or by the following day. From there, the water is pumped up into elevated water structures. The city has 2 elevated water structures. One is a 500,000 gallon water sphere at the water treatment plant, and the other is a 1.5 million gallon elevated tank by the public works yard. The elevated water structures serve 2 purposes: to supply water to the system and to provide pressure in the water system. Before our finished water is distributed to the public, water is introduced from our interconnects with third-party water systems. An interconnect is essentially a pipe that connects 2 different sources of water and are typically used for supplemental water or as an emergency backup water supply. The City of Rahway has 2 major interconnects. The primary interconnect, which serves to provide supplemental water, is with Middlesex Water Company. Our second interconnect, which serves as an emergency backup, is with New Jersey American Water. Although we have assigned specific purposes for each interconnect, either interconnect can be used for supplemental or emergency backup supply to provide an added factor of safety in the event of a major failure at our water treatment plant or in our distribution system. So now we have our finished water stored in our elevated water structures, ready to go out to the system. Before that water is distributed to your property, the finished water is blended with water from our interconnect with Middlesex Water, after which point the water is known as blended water. After the water is blended, it is pushed out into the system and to your property. Why does the water taste salty in the winter? We return back to the slide that depicts the watershed and the source of our drinking water to review why our drinking water tastes salty in the winter. Within the watershed, there are 6 major roadways that cross through the 41 square mile area. Starting from the north, we have Route 280, Route 24, Route 78, Route 22, Route 28, and the Garden State Parkway. When wintry conditions are expected in the winter, all major roads are prepared with salting activity for driver safety. Salting activity and salt sources include road salting and brining, as well as runoff that comes from salt storage sheds. While all of these operations are necessary to keep our roads safe during inclement weather, they have the unfortunate impact of adding salt to the water that ends up in the river and makes its way into our water system. Although this is a serious concern, this issue is typically limited to 2 months out of the year, in January and February, but can occur in December and March as well, depending on the weather conditions that year. Due to annual variations in weather patterns and magnitude of salting activities, this issue does not affect our drinking water every year. What are chlorides and how are they addressed? Chlorides are essentially the salt in the water that is generated from the salt, brine, and runoff from salt storage sheds that gets into the raw water. Salts in our drinking water are measured by testing chloride levels in accordance with US EPA and NJDEP regulations. In February of 2025, our blended water had high concentrations of chlorides. However, according to the US EPA and the NJDEP, chlorides are considered secondary drinking water standards. The secondary drinking water standards are those types of elements or impacts to water that affect the taste, color, and odor of the water and are not considered to impact health. Ultimately, according to both US EPA and NJDEP regulations, chlorides are not considered to present a risk to human health as the amount of chlorides consumed via a standard diet typically far exceeds the amount of chlorides that might be consumed via drinking water. So how are chlorides addressed? There are a few options for treating drinking water for chlorides. The most common option for treating periodic chlorides issues, as experienced in Rahway, is dilution, or blending. This is the method that Rahway uses to mitigate chlorides in the water. When the city experiences high chlorides, we increase the intake of water through the interconnection with Middlesex Water Company. Their water source is groundwater, which is typically minimally impacted by chlorides in surface waters. The interconnection with Middlesex Water Company has a maximum flow capacity of up to 2.5 million gallons per day. In Rahway, our daily average demand ranges from 3 million gallons per day in the winter to 6 million gallons per day in the summer when people are watering lawns and outside using more water. In the unlikely event that additional supplemental water is needed to combat chlorides, the interconnect with New Jersey American Water can be utilized to provide 100% of our water from our backup water sources. Two other options that exist are distillation and reverse osmosis. These treatment options are most prevalent in areas where freshwater sources are limited or where seawater desalination is necessary. The most common among these would be tropical islands that do not have access to freshwater aquifers. In these situations, salty water is the only raw water option that must be treated year-round, unlike the city of Rahway that has access to water from the Rahway River. Distillation and reverse osmosis are not commonly used due to cost. Both distillation and reverse osmosis are multi-million-dollar expenses from an installation and operational perspective. Distillation is the more expensive of the two, with an estimated cost of up to $50 million just for installation. For a reverse osmosis system, which was recommended to the city by Veolia, installation costs are estimated at $15 million. Operating costs for distillation and reverse osmosis systems are approximately $2 million and $1 million annually, respectively. For the city of Rahway, distillation or reverse osmosis are impractical solutions because of the expenses required for something that only presents itself typically 2 months out of the year and sometimes not even. Why was the taste of salt so strong in February? Several factors combined in a way that led to the extremely high chloride levels in the blended water that we experienced in February of 2025. Based on review of available data, these events have not happened simultaneously in the recent past. These are the 4 primary contributing factors. Excess salt supply. In recent years, mild winters have led to minimal salt application, resulting in an oversupply of road salt. This issue is prevalent across the entire region. With high salt reserves, there was an increased likelihood of heavy application when winter weather conditions arose. This is exactly what was experienced this past winter. 2. Multiple small snowstorms. Unlike recent years with no snowstorms or few large snowstorms, this year saw multiple small snowstorms. Interestingly, large snowstorms are less problematic for water quality for 2 reasons. First, since it is already known that plowing will be required, only enough salt or brining is applied to keep the roads passable until plowing operations begin. Applying heavy amounts of salt is wasteful since it will be scraped away as soon as plowing operations begin. When smaller storms of less than 2 to 3 inches are expected, heavy amounts of salt and brining are applied since plowing will most likely not be implemented. Second, Large snowstorms generate large amounts of runoff when the snow melts, so the concentration of salt in the melted snow is reduced. In about a 7-week period between the end of December 2024 and the middle of February 2025, we experienced 6 consecutive snowstorms with extremely cold temperatures in between, which allowed the chlorides in the ground to build up. Snow melt-off between storms typically helps reduce the concentration of chlorides, but without the benefit of that melt-off or rain, the concentration of chlorides entering the Rahway River remained extremely high. Third, drought warning status. During the 2024-2025 winter, the state of New Jersey was still at a drought warning status, which is one step below a full-blown drought emergency, which would mandate conservation efforts. Although not at the highest drought level, there are many factors that also contributed to the chlorides issue. Drought conditions lower river levels, making any contaminants, including chlorides, more concentrated. Compounding the issue, low groundwater levels meant that any precipitation or snow melt was rapidly absorbed into the ground, allowing salt-laden water to infiltrate groundwater sources. Our backup water provider, Middlesex Water Company, relies primarily on groundwater and reported rising chloride levels, which is not typical for groundwater sources. Similarly, our emergency backup provider, New Jersey American Water, which sources surface water like Rahway, also experienced elevated chloride levels. News reports and NJDEP statements highlighted concerns about salt levels in water supplies across the state and region. So, in addition to our primary source of water experiencing extremely high chloride levels, our primary and secondary backup water providers that we blend our water with and typically have low chloride levels were also experiencing high chloride levels as well. And finally, inadequate forecasting by Veolia. Veolia is the city's contracted licensed water operator. They have standard operating procedures in place to address high chlorides in the water, which they implemented. However, their response was reactive rather than proactive. In summary, the high chloride levels in the water this year were driven by several factors: an increased salt supply, an increased salt application, increased chloride concentrations, and delayed response from our water purveyor, which led to high chlorides. Veolia's inadequate forecasting failed to account for well-known issues, including the ongoing drought warning since November, the series of small snowstorms beginning in December, and the industry-wide awareness of excess salt supplies. What is the city doing in response to what happened? As the licensed operators and experts in drinking water production, Veolia is contractually responsible for delivering water that meets federal and state requirements. But as the owner of the water system, the city is responsible to its citizens for holding Veolia to task. To that end, the city has been in ongoing communication with NJDEP regarding chloride levels and other water quality standards to ensure compliance and to seek guidance on how to address same. By mid-February, when chloride levels peaked, we had reached out to the NJDEP for guidance out of concern for users of our water. The NJDEP confirmed that high chloride levels do not pose a direct health risk and are primarily an aesthetic concern. However, individuals on sodium-restricted diets should consult with their physicians if they have concerns. We also sought confirmation that our current water conditions remained in compliance with NJDEP and US EPA expectations, which was also confirmed. We are also working with Veolia to revise their standard operating procedures to include an early warning action plan for high chlorides to establish proactive rather than reactive trigger points for blending water and notifying stakeholders. A key public concern was the lack of early notification, as the initial notice went out only a day or two in advance of the high chloride issue. Moving forward, Veolia will be required to analyze key indicators that could lead to high chloride levels, allowing for earlier public advisories. Additionally, Veolia has been tasked with reviewing optimal blending schedules to ensure timely action. While the cost of purchasing additional water from Middlesex Water Company is a concern, our priority is to provide the highest quality water possible. So, backup water resources should be utilized swiftly to mitigate chloride issues, something that did not happen quickly enough this time. To further strengthen our proactive position, Veolia has been tasked with coordinating with the NJDOT and other state highway agencies controlling the roads depicted in the prior slide in order to receive early notifications of salting and brining activities, allowing Veolia to anticipate potential impacts on water quality. And finally, our quarterly meetings with Veolia will now include a dedicated review of chloride issues before winter begins. These discussions will review potential water quality threats, operational concerns, and capital improvement requirements, where details such as forecast assessments, drought conditions, potential public notice needs, and identification of any necessary preventative actions will be identified. The ultimate goal is to reduce chloride levels in the water, but when it is not possible to keep chlorides to a desirable level due to conditions out of our control, to provide notice to the public as early as possible. What investments has the city already made? Did you know that the Rahway Water Treatment Plant was originally constructed in 1872 by what was previously known as the Rahway Water Company, which was founded in 1859? Over the years, the City of Rahway has continuously invested in and improved the treatment plant and distribution system to take advantage of advancements in technology and to accommodate population growth. These improvements and expansions have taken place year after year to enhance water quality and system reliability, and still continue today as the city explores cutting-edge technology so that we are prepared for future issues. One of the more recent upgrades, completed in 2016, was the installation of the interconnect with Middlesex Water Company at a cost of approximately $2 million. The interconnect consists of a 1.2-mile, 16-inch water main that runs primarily along Madison Avenue and terminates just outside the water treatment plant. The interconnect was designed specifically to provide contingencies for issues such as high chlorides, drought conditions, or other emergencies. During the recent chloride event, the amount of water purchased from Middlesex Water Company was increased to the maximum value to mitigate the challenges created by the drought and chloride issues. Currently, water purchased from Middlesex Water Company is back at minimum levels. In 2017, a new membrane filtration system was installed at a cost of approximately $10 million, significantly enhancing the plant's filtration capabilities. Previously, the facility relied on an outdated gravity-fed system, which limited both processing speed and efficiency. The new membrane technology not only improved water quality, but also increased production capacity. Before the upgrade, the plant's maximum output was approximately 4.4 million gallons per day. With the new system in place, that capacity was increased to 7.7 million gallons per day, ensuring a higher level of water quality and that the city is prepared for future demand. In 2019, the city initiated PFAS treatment testing and implementation at a cost of $400,000. That year, the NJDEP announced plans to introduce new PFAS regulations in 2020, with compliance required by 2021. The DEP's compliance requirement could be met by installing a compliance system or simply having a plan in place for compliance. The latter was not an option for the City of Rahway. Rather than delaying the system upgrade by simply providing a compliance plan, the city proactively directed Veolia to begin testing treatment options so that we could beat the deadline. By 2020, After evaluating several solutions, the city decided on an expansion of the granular activated carbon system, which is one of the most widely used PFAS removal methods in the water industry. As a result of the city's early and decisive action, the system was operational a full year before the NJDEP's compliance deadline of 2021, ensuring the city was ahead of regulatory requirements and proved our commitment to providing safe drinking water. Our most recent water quality initiative is the lead service line replacement project, which is part of our broader water quality assurance initiative. If you live or own property in Rahway, you have likely received a letter from the engineering department regarding this project at some point in time. Over the last 4 years, the City of Rahway has dedicated countless hours to informing the public about the importance of this project. The total estimated cost of the project is $8 million. Phases 1 and 2, completed in 2024, focused on investigating and identifying the material composition of water service lines throughout Rahway. If a property has a lead or galvanized service line, either on the customer side, the portion leading into the house, or the utility side, which is between the water main and the curb, property owners can check their service line status via the city's website for the Water Quality Assurance Initiative. Links are provided on the last slide of this presentation. Thanks to significant grant funding secured by the Mayor and Council, the city plans to replace all lead or galvanized service lines at no cost to property owners. The only requirement for homeowners is to complete a right of entry form, allowing the city access to replace lead or galvanized lines inside their homes. Phase 3, which is currently underway, will replace about half of the 500 to 600 confirmed lead or galvanized service lines identified by our inventory efforts. Not all replacements require home entry. Those on the utility side can be replaced from the street. Phase 3 is expected to be completed by the end of this year, 2025, followed by Phase 4, which is targeted for completion by the end of 2026. The NJDEP and US EPA mandated that all lead service lines be replaced by 2031. However, in line with the city's previous proactive approach, seen with the membrane filter and PFAS legislation, the city is on track to complete the lead service line project 5 years ahead of the required deadline, ensuring safe drinking water for our residents as soon as possible. The proactive approach of the city is reflected by our track record. Reviewing available records on the NJDEP's Drinking Water Watch website, the City of Rahway has not had any water quality violations in the past 25 years. Additionally, much of the funding for these improvements, approximately over $13 million, has come from grants, forgivable loans, or low-interest loans acquired by the City of Rahway. This outside funding significantly reduces the impact on taxpayers and ratepayers. The Mayor, Council, and City Administration have worked diligently to secure these funds to invest in Rahway's water infrastructure without imposing unnecessary financial burdens on its residents. Provided on the screen are links and corresponding QR codes to several resources. Lead Service Line Project, also known as the Water Quality Assurance Initiative. Please visit this link to check if your property has a lead service line. The right of entry form is also available online for homeowners needing replacements. New Jersey Drinking Water Watch. This resource provides the same water quality data reported to the DEP by Veolia. You can review testing results and other state-mandated reports regarding the drinking water supplied to your home. Consumer Confidence Report. This document is issued by Veolia and is a state-mandated report which provides specific water quality details. A link to this report is included with your water bill, but can be viewed by following the QR code or link below. The most recent available report is for 2023, as the 2024 report will be released in June of 2025. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to share regarding the February 2025 chloride event or our water system in general, please do not hesitate to contact the Rahway Engineering Department or Veolia Rahway Customer Service at the contact information provided on the screen.